Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Today we have 3 high protein vegan recipes for you.
Each recipe is around 30 grams of protein, and if you wanted to eat them throughout the day, which you can because it's going to be at breakfast, lunch and dinner, it's going to be around 100 grams of protein per person.
For all of these recipes today, we are not relying on meat replacements or protein powders or anything like that. They are actually all whole food plant-based recipes.
And as always, they are all simple and easy. So let's just get started with the first recipe, which is going to be a breakfast.
The first recipe that we're going to be showing you is a potato hash. It makes a perfect brunchy, lunchy, breakfast kind of thing. And we're getting loads of protein into this recipe by including not just a tofu scramble, but lots of high protein black beans as well.
We're going to start by chopping up our sweet potato into bite-sized cubes and then parboiling it. We're going to parboil the potatoes for about 8 minutes until they're almost cooked. And while that's happening, we're going to make our tofu scramble. If you saw our most recent What I Eat in a Week, we did make this for one of our breakfasts, but we thought it'd be great to add this in with our potato hash to make it more of like a breakfast bowl, and it adds in more of that plant-based protein as well. So instead of using one type of tofu like a firm or a silken, we're going to use both types of tofu and combine them together so you get the kind of soft silkeny eggy bit and then also the firm tofu kind of coming together to create this perfect scrambled eggy texture. So the firm tofu here that I'm crumbling in is going to be more of the bigger pieces that you might find in a scrambled egg, and then when I come to add in silken tofu, that's going to be the runnier part. I'm just smushing the silken tofu with the back of my spoon a little bit just to break it down. To thin out the texture, we are using a bit of soy milk. You could use any plant-based milk here, but we've gone for soy because it has a higher protein content compared to something like an oat or an almond. Our scrambled tofu is looking and smelling amazing, so we're going to just leave that to one side and get on with the potato hash part of this breakfast. This might go a little bit cold whilst you're finishing that, but you can just reheat at the end, and if the texture has gone a little bit dry, add in a bit of soy milk, heat it back up, and it'll be ready to go. Coming back to our sweet potato hash, we have drained the water and we've left the potato cubes in the pan that they're in. I'm now going to go in and add a little drizzle of olive oil, some garlic, and fry that down, and then go in with the black beans. So this is just to save kind of washing up. We don't need to add it to a new pan. If you've done your potatoes in a pan big enough to add in all the black beans and all the other bits, then you're good to go. The main elements of our potato hash are done. We've done the scrambled tofu, we've got our sweet potato and black bean. So now the only thing that's left to do is to prepare our toppings, and we're going for some sliced avocado, some little cherry tomatoes, and then some extra spring onion and coriander sprinkled on the top. This is so delicious. If you're into savoury breakfasts, this is definitely going to be up your street. It's very filling, it's full of so many lovely flavours. You've got a real nice spicy kick from the potato hash, and then the scrambled tofu is like got a lovely creamy, more kind of eggy umami flavour. It's also kind of a little bit Mexican inspired as well, because we've got the sweet potato, black beans, paprika, those kind of flavours, and our avocado. So yeah, this is a proper kind of like hearty weekend brunch idea right here. Our next recipe, which is a great option for lunch, is a honey harissa stuffed potato pocket. And for our protein, we're going to be using tempeh, which is not something that we cook with that often, or I mean, I think it's been years since we cooked with it, but we always see it on the shelf and never really reach for it. But this time we thought, let's mix it up. Instead of using tofu, which we use all the time, we'll try something different. We're going to be using this brand, which is Tiba Tempeh, and that's going to be the main part of the pitta. We're going to be baking it in the oven so it goes nice and crispy, and then coating it in a vegan honey and harissa kind of glaze. So that's going to be absolutely delicious. We've got some other bits and bobs that we're going to be putting into our pittas as well, which we'll show you later on in the recipe. We recently did a hot honey oyster mushroom burger on one of our shorts, and a lot of people across Instagram and TikTok and YouTube were intrigued, I would say, by the honey, because obviously honey's not vegan. So what we are using is this Sweet Freedom vegan honey, and it's the first vegan honey that we've ever tried. It's pretty good, I would say. It's definitely a little bit more floral than a regular honey is, but it's got a really great consistency, and I've been enjoying it on a crumpet for breakfast recently. But this is what we're going to be using for our honey alternative with the harissa. If you don't have honey, then an agave syrup would work really nice as well, or a maple syrup, anything like that. We've coated our tempeh slices in the harissa honey glaze. We're going to bake them in the oven for about 15 minutes at 200 degrees. Whilst we were brushing on the honey harissa glaze, we purposely left a little bit back in the bowl, and this is going to go on the tempeh when we pull it out of the oven, just to give it a nice little extra flavour boost.
The next thing that we're going to make to go in our pitta pockets, along with that delicious harissa honey tempeh, is a lovely yogurt-based sauce, but it's going to be a herby lemony tahini yogurt sauce.
That is delicious. It's fresh and zingy from all that lemon juice and lemon zest, but it's also very creamy and earthy from the tahini. This is going to cut really nicely through the sweet honey tempeh. These are gorgeous.
Straight out the oven.
They've kind of charred a little bit on the edges. They're not necessarily going to be crispy, but because the nature of tempeh is that it's quite firm, it's going to be a very different texture to tofu. The main two elements of this dish are done, which is the tahini yogurt sauce and then the honey harissa tempeh. So the rest of the pitta is going to be obviously our pittas. So we've gone for wholemeal pitta because they've got slightly more protein content in. And then we're going to do some freshly sliced cucumber. And then we've also got some lovely pink pickled red onions. And these, you can buy them ready pickled from the shop, or what we do is just have a batch kind of going in the fridge all the time, because we love adding it onto pretty much everything. I think I can say I'm officially converted to tempeh. The harissa is perfectly spiced, and then that really nice creamy yogurty nutty sauce pairs perfectly with the heat, so it's really nicely balanced. This is a delicious little pitta pocket, and definitely the kind of lunch that you would look forward to. The last recipe is our dinner recipe, and it's going to be a super greens pesto pasta. So we're going to be doing obviously a pesto, homemade pesto, and for this we're mixing up, we're not going for the classic basil and pineapple, we're going to be doing an almond and rocket pesto. We're going to be stirring that through some spaghetti with lots of other lovely green veggies. It's going to be super vibrant, packed with delicious plant-based protein and nutrients. To begin this recipe, we're going to start by roasting our butter beans. We're using these bold bean co ones. We've never used them before. We keep seeing them on Instagram and they look amazing. So we're going to be roasting these up so they go nice and crispy, just really simple with some olive oil, salt and pepper. And this is something that we love to add to pastas. It's a great way of adding in some extra protein and also a nice little crunchy textural thing as well. There are multiple ways of making pesto. The traditional method is in a pestle and mortar, but most people don't really have time to do that. What we want to do is try and make this pesto as achievable as possible instead of buying a shop bought. So we tend to just blend everything up in a blender with the olive oil and everything in together. If you didn't want to make it properly, then the best thing is to drizzle your olive oil in slowly so it emulsifies, but our blender doesn't have a hole, so we're going to add in half of our olive oil now just to get things going, and then add in the next half after that. This definitely isn't anything like your traditional pesto. Like we said before, it's got a higher nut content and higher kind of like leaf content to oil. So it's kind of more like a paste, but it tastes absolutely delicious. And what we're going to do is drain the pasta and leave a little bit of pasta water in the pan, and then mix that in with this pesto, and that's going to thin this out nicely. We're going to be using half a head of broccoli. This one's quite a small one, so it might be just a bit more than half, but we're going to chop off the stalk and save that with the other half for another dish. We like to kind of shred up the stalk, sometimes small, and pop it into things like an aglio olio or stir fries or things like that. So definitely don't waste your stalk because it's delicious and full of all the best bits of the broccoli. For our pasta, we're using some lovely spaghetti, but you can really use whatever your favourite pasta shape is. So sometimes we do it with linguine, sometimes we do it with like a fusilli or a penne. Just whatever you've got in your cupboard will work beautifully. This recipe we've added in some little peas, and a tip for cooking them so you don't have to cook them separately because we're using frozen peas is you just add them in to your pasta just 1 minute before the end, and they'll cook in that pasta water, and then you can drain everything together. But don't forget to leave a little bit of pasta water left in the pan, which is going to loosen up our pesto.
They look incredible.
They do. I think we might find it hard to go back to regular tin beans after these.
This looks so good. I mean, you'd be completely forgiven for thinking if we've edited the colours on this because it's so green. Because the almond and rocket pesto that we made is so thick, it makes this even creamier. Like that little sort of starchy pasta water mixed with all of that just turns this into such a creamy greens pesto dinner. It's so good. It's like earthy and sweet and it's just delicious. Oh, I'll try the bean just on their own. So I've had this a million times with like regular beans just from Sainsbury's, but I'm not trying.
These are queen butter beans.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference.
You really can. They're like, again,
Sweeter and creamy.
Yeah, sweeter and creamier. They're just, it's one of those things where, you know, when you try something and you're like annoyed that it's better because
it's
you
more
can't go back
expensive.
now. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to have to, this is just it. This is beans for me now. I'm just like, I'm going to have to spend all my money on beans.
Not a bad life for a vegan.
We really hope you guys enjoyed all of these recipes. If you did, make sure to hit subscribe because we've got so many other vegan recipe videos like this on our channel.
And we'd love to know, what are your favourite sources of plant-based whole food protein? We tried something today, a tempeh that we don't usually cook with. We're trying to broaden our horizons with our plant-based protein, so we'd love to know what your favourite ones are. So let us know down in the comments, and we will see you in our next video.
Bye.